All right, Angela, thank you for joining me on the Happy Whole You podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
Well, you are a fellow Michigander, and which is awesome. I love it when I can connect with people back in Michigan where my roots are. And it's pretty cold there right now, isn't it?
Cold, yeah, I think it's like in the 20s today. And it's so
Yeah.
funny. I'm actually watching my son's girlfriend's dog. So I took Mr. Morton for a walk, and I think his paws were getting a little too cold for him.
Yeah.
So he was kind of turning towards the house very quickly.
Oh, I bet. I bet. I've been gone from Michigan for about 20 years now, so I will be going back for the holiday season. And I am a baby now when it comes to the cold because I live in the desert now and I am used to California sun. So I'm not as strong as I used to be in the cold.
And I don't know if you know this, but I was born in Chicago, but originally raised in Virginia. So this colder and more intense climate of Michigan is not necessarily something that I think I'll ever get used to. I remember coming here when I was I think like 10 or something, and I remember saying I never would ever want to live in Detroit, Michigan, because that's where I went. And I've been here since 1993.
Yeah, I know. That's how it goes. I thought I'd only be here for a few years and here I am 20 years later. So, okay. Well, let's jump in. Who you are, what you do, how you do what you do. But really, so as we're talking about the cold weather, can you share because I want to know what tips you have for people that are in cold weather when it comes to like exercise, working out, and keeping, good health, which I have 1,000 questions in my head for you. But how about in your own words, though, before we jump into that, to share with everyone who you are, what you do, and what your passions are.
Okay, so I'm Angela T. Moore. I consider myself an integrative health professional. I say that because I am a licensed therapist. I'm also an NAS and master trainer. I have certifications, excuse me, specializations in performance enhancement, corrective exercise, group fitness nutrition. I'm sorry, group exercise and fitness nutrition. I think I'm missing one. And I have been very passionate about the fitness industry for many, many years. But while I was actually training a number of clients earlier in my career, what I recognized is that many clients were putting me in the role of a therapist because they were asking me questions about life and how to get through some very difficult life obstacles. And I was able to successfully do that. But what I recognized is that I I didn't want to do any harm. And I wanted to make sure that I had the training and the expertise. If they're going to put me in that role, I wanted to make sure if I step into the role, I did so with the, academic, I would say the academic training, academics and training to support what it was that they were asking me to do. And so I actually, even though I had a master's in business, I actually went back for a master's in counseling. And what I recognized through that process is that there is a very strategic way that you can help people. But what I also recognized through that process as I was helping clients when I was going through practicum and internship, and while I was, working with many different clients, is that if they don't personally connect with you and they don't feel that you are personally connected with them and that you really truly do care for them, then you're not going to be able to help them. And because of the many different challenges that I've had throughout my life, which I wouldn't give up for the world, I am able to connect with a lot of different people where they're at and actually get them where they want to get to, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I get that because when I first started out, I started off as a personal trainer, and you and I both know you can help people lose as much weight as they want and do all that. But if we're not working on the psychological, the mental aspect, the connection aspect, we do miss a whole aspect of healing. And so I love that you focus on not just the physical health with people, but the mental health with people. And I think that probably most trainers, as well as hairdressers, find themselves in situations where they're having, clients that open up to them and share with them some deeper things. And, I think, even if you didn't have the background that you have, the key is the listening aspect that is so helpful because I think sometimes people just don't feel like they're being heard, or they don't know what next steps to take. And that's what you help people with as well is taking the next steps and building momentum towards the life that they desire. So first, before we jump into that, like why do you do what you do today? Like, what got you to this space of wanting to help people in the way you do? So I know you said that, you started off and then you realized there's like this bigger piece, so you went back to school to do it. But like, what in your heart, in your being has, because not everyone wants to show up and help people live their best life every day. So
Mhm.
that's an
Yeah.
incredible a gift that you're giving the world. So what was it about you that made you want to dedicate your life to this?
It's interesting, and I'll try to sum it up very quickly. But as I kind of alluded to earlier in our conversation, is that I've dealt with a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles I've had to overcome, and some of those major obstacles. Um, Started when I was very young, but a very pivotal time in my life was when my mother died of a massive stroke when I was 13 and she
Mm,
was only 42. I literally walked in the room and found her having a stroke and I'm holding her and trying to help her while she's having a stroke. And that in itself was an extremely traumatic event because my mom seemed fine earlier in the day. We were just talking. She had a little bit of headache and then she's basically dying. And what was even more significant was after she passed, when I was going through her items and bringing these items to the funeral home, I found notes that she had been writing to herself. I need to get life together. I'm depressed. I'm depressed. So, what I recognized, very early is that you can be physically unwell and not look like it from the outside. And then you can be mentally unwell and not look like it
mm,
necessarily from the outside. Now, what was really interesting is after she passed, I was really in a state of grief and grieving in a way that I just, if you looked at me from the outside, I appeared numb. And no one talked to me. No one thought to say, how are you? Do you understand what happened to your mother? And so that
mm,
grief was really, it was intensified because I was not able to deal with it in a healthy way. But I went out for the track team in the 10th grade. The track coach saw me run once and he said, "You're going to get a full track scholarship to school." And I did
mm,
not know I had that gift in me. But what I recognized is when I ran, I felt better. I felt like I could deal with my grief. I felt like I could deal with my emotions. I started setting goals for myself. I started having dreams and I had big visions for my life. And so then I recognized, like, wow, when you physically move, you feel better. And
mm.
then when I got to college and I did get the full scholarship, I'm running, I'm doing really well. But then my brother died by suicide.
Oh,
And but what was interesting is that time when I was dealing with grief, because I was in a more stable, strong place, I had healed from, I was healing from the loss of my mom. I was, in a good environment. I was able to deal with that loss in a much healthier way. And so I recognize that while you may have some difficult situations and circumstances that you have to go through, if you can be strong and stable, and if you can be in a healthier place, you're able to better deal with those things. And if you're in a healthier place, nutritionally and physically, you're better able to deal with the obstacles and challenges of life. So that's why I do what I do.
such an amazing story. And to go through all that, I can't imagine. So young.
Mhm.
Um, but I can see how you would be motivated to do what you do today and how, those experiences, I mean, they've afforded you probably compassion, empathy, patience, understanding. I mean, all those great qualities. Um, so how is it that you work with people? So like if someone were to come to you and start working with you, how do you support them where they're at?
Well, first, I try to get, and this is with my physical health clients or my mental health clients, I really need to understand who you are and what your goals are, and why do you have those goals, and also, are you willing now to do the work to accomplish those goals? And why I may, if you're not ready to do the work, I will try to spend some time to help you to get there. But if you really are going to fight me, and you're not ready to make the changes, then I say, well, let's maybe um, step back and get to where you are really willing to do the work, because I can't eat healthy food for you. I can't exercise for you. I can't solve the issues that you're dealing with. You're going to have to do the work. And so if you're willing to do the work, I'm willing to work with you. And I
Yeah.
will literally go minute by minute, hour by hour, and figure out what steps you need to accomplish your goals. And so that is a very significant part, is understanding who the person is, why they're wanting to make those challenges and make those changes in their life, what challenges may be facing, or like what are things that may impede their
Mhm.
progress or what they're trying to accomplish. And then we kind of come up with a game plan as to what is it that you want to accomplish, and how are we going to accomplish it, and what are the steps that we need to do each and every day to get there.
Yeah, okay, I want to back up a little bit. What do you find is like some of the significant things of why people aren't willing or ready to do the work? Because there's that psychological, this is I want this, I want that. But then when it comes down to, where the rubber meets the road, they're not stepping into the actions that need to be done to achieve what they're saying that they want to achieve. Is there anything that you find that's pretty common as why they're not ready to do the work?
Yeah, if they're not ready to do the work for themselves. I find
Hmm.
that if they're doing the work because somebody shamed them or made them feel
Hmm.
guilty,
Yeah.
um, they are trying to do it for an event. Like, either if you're saying, okay, I want to get fit and I want to get healthier, because I have the class reunion coming up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if they are, I said probably another thing I would say, if they are doing it because maybe they see other people doing it,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they're kind of like, okay, like it can be like some fad now, like, and they'll say, I want to do the keto diet,
Yeah. Yeah.
or Selena Gomez talked about her mental health, and she's being vulnerable. I want to now be vulnerable.
Yeah. 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 No, I get
So
that. I
it
get that.
really has to be because you're saying, you know what? I want to become the best version of myself.
Hmm.
And whether my husband or my wife or my friends or my family support me or not, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get healthy. And if you're willing to do that, I'll get you there. I can
Yeah.
100% guarantee you I'll get you there.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Do you find this is something I find when I work with clients? I find, and I find this because I've done this in my own life, is that many times people are setting goals based on other people's expectations or other people's goals. And then they show up and they're like, oh my gosh, 10 years has gone by, 15 years, 20 years has gone by. I don't even recognize my life. Like, what am I doing here? And then it's like, oh, maybe I should do this big weight loss journey or I should do this big thing. But I find that the goals that they're setting for themselves, I think one of the biggest reasons that people are amiss on those goals is because it was never their goal in the first place. It was society's, or it was their parents, or it was their spouses, or it was, just like you were saying, like you have to be ready to do it for you and not everyone else. But I do find that, I mean, I know in my own life, there are certain things that, yeah, I've achieved, but it was never my goal. So it never felt as satisfying as what, like, it's like, oh yeah, once I get here, then I'll feel. And then you're like, oh no, wait, once I get here, then I'll feel. And it never feels as good achieving that as like the things that I'm like, I know to my soul, to my core, that this is what I'm going to do. Even though it's outside the box and different, it's like those are the things that really bring me a lot of joy and happiness. So yeah, you got to be ready to do it on your own.
You do,
For
you
you,
do.
for you.
Yeah, for you. And I think, it's so funny because, we always hear about purpose. Purpose Driven Life was a book that, stimulated a lot of people
Mhm.
to want to find their purpose. And one of the things I recognize is your purpose. You can have many different purposes. I mean, you can have like your overall purpose, like what you feel like you were created and, on this earth to be. But I feel like if you are, um like right now, my purpose right now is to be totally connected to you.
Mhm.
And this is the purpose of this 20-30 minute conversation is to be committed to you. Just like when I leave, once we disconnect and I go maybe talk with my husband, it's to be totally present with my husband at that time. And I find that oftentimes who you are and what you should be doing is usually right in front of you. It's what you
Mhm.
naturally feel inclined to do or what you naturally makes you feel happy. And I feel like if you pay attention to those things and then you align and position yourself with what naturally feels good to you, as long as it's healthy, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it will lead you to exactly where you want to go. I think oftentimes what happens is we get persuaded by things that pop up, something that's shiny that appears over here, something that appears lucrative over here, and you feel like, well, I should go to shiny, I should go to lucrative. When no, it's like, but would either of those make you happy? Does it speak to who you are?
Mm.
Do you even know or pay attention to what your natural gifts and talents are? Or do you kind of dummy them down and say, well, that's easy for me. I probably should, that's not a talent. But usually, what's easy for you and what naturally makes you happy, it seems easy to you because it's your gift.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that is so good. I literally was working earlier. I had a coaching session with a client who
Mhm.
is very successful, um, does all sorts of entrepreneur businesses. And we're talking about that. It's like he feels like, he's not doing enough and he's got to keep pushing and, all the things because it's like, when he first got it started, it felt a lot harder, more treacherous, like, and now that he's in his late 50s, it's like it's like almost like he's nervous because things seem a little bit too easy. And it's like, listen, your easy is like so hard for like
Yeah.
the person in their 20s, the person in their 30s. And so I think that is funny because we oftentimes to discount the talents that we have because it's easy to us. So we assume that it's not that big a deal when really we should be celebrating what we can do and our uniqueness and yeah, but I think too that that's like a natural thing with evolution that keeps us humble because like this guy could be totally so cocky and like and he's the most humble person in the world. It's like, oh my gosh, you've created like some incredible things that are global. Like what are you like saying right now, right? But I think we all go through that. We think like, oh well, what is my purpose? Or oh well, that's easy, so that's not that big a deal. Um, yeah, that's a very interesting thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. Because I don't know if you find also like people like are struggling, they say they're struggling to find their purpose. They don't know what their purpose is when really it's within us and it's not something for you to look for. So, how do you help people really see the power that they have within them?
One, understand what's in them.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, and it's funny because oftentimes it's during our hardest, most challenging times of our life that what's in us really comes out.
Yes.
And but sometimes you don't recognize that it's a good thing because you're under stress, you're
Mhm.
overwhelmed or you're burdened or you're dealing with grief or significant loss or something that's, tragic or, has happened to you. And you don't even realize that you were resilient, you were able to navigate through some very different conditions. You became innovative and creative and you figured out some really amazing things during that difficult time. You rose up as opposed to lying down, but you don't necessarily see it and appreciate
Mm.
it because of what you're going through. And so, one of the things I really think, and I think I do really well, is when I look at the difficult challenges that someone's overcome, like, or even trauma that
Mhm.
someone's had to overcome. When we go back and we kind of look at how they were able to navigate through there, and I help them see the power that they found as they went experience that, that traumatic event.
Mhm.
um, then they start to see it. They're like, wow, like I didn't even see the
Yeah.
power that that I had to exert, to deal with my father's death or my
Mhm.
mother's death, or the loss of that job, or that major transition. And
Mhm.
so, once you go through event after event, and a lot of times they've wanted to hide these things, they haven't wanted to talk about them. And then when they can talk about it and look at it from a private, I mean, I'm sorry, from a positive way, something that
Mhm.
they've kept very private, and now you can look at it from a very positive way, you start to feel powerful as opposed to ashamed.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I love
Mhm.
that. I absolutely love that. I call that the value gained from the traumatic times we've had. Like when we can, like
Mhm.
exactly what you said, when we can go back and we can view the situation. I go like this, like I'm holding my hands up high because I go back and I look as if I'm looking down on the situation, like I'm out of my body in that traumatic situation that I was in. And when I've approached it to where I'm hovering over, as I am now today, looking at what happened in a specific situation in my life at one time. When I view it from that point, and I try not to attach any emotion to it. But two, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take from that. How have I become a better human because of that? Right? Because I can't change it because that happened to me. It was something I experienced. So I just try to say, oh my gosh, I'm so much more compassionate with people. I am I am not someone that's going to judge you. You can come to me with pretty much anything. There's no shame at all, but it's like before that, I more likely would judge people, right? It's like I feel like I love that you say that because when we can take that value, that power from that situation, then we no longer allow that situation to pull us down.
Mhm.
It's like I always say we got to appreciate the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when we can
Right.
appreciate it, it's there's like this opportunity where it frees us. And I know that like I feel like this weight every time I go back to a situation in my life and I try to extract that value game or that power that I got from it, it's like almost like this sense of weight just comes off of me. It's like that
Mhm.
freeing. But those that listen to the podcast, we talk about energy and frequencies, and shame is actually one of the lowest vibrational frequencies that we can function at, and it feels very dense and very heavy. That's why when we feel shame, like we don't even want to come out from under the covers. We want to stay secluded. We want to stay in the dark.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, releasing that is like, I think one of the most powerful things that we can do as humans.
Yeah, and I tell you, I feel very honored to be able to create time and space for people to release their shame.
Mm.
I mean, that's probably the greatest thing that I love about what I do. I mean, I've literally had people, I think, just meet with me because they just wanted someone, they want to tell their deepest, darkest secret.
Mhm.
And they know that, it will never be shared. It will never, go anywhere but, in my heart, soul, and spirit. And to be able to give that to someone, to be able to release that and put it down, and know when they left that they left it with me,
Mm.
I absolutely love, because I can carry it. And and I have to tell you, that was one of the things that was really amazing for me, is when I was going through the process of becoming a therapist. Um, I didn't know the gift that I had inside of me until I saw it. And the only reason I saw it is because when you're in practicum, you have to record your sessions. And I had never seen myself be that support for someone. And
Ah.
as I was talking to someone and they were describing all these series of really horrible experiences, and I saw how I was able to create a space for this person that they just you could see just all the weight
Mm.
of everything they experienced just lift off of them. And
Yeah.
they felt where all that guilt and shame and condemnation and everything was on them, you could see them just release it. And that I was able to do it in such because at that particular like one particular session, what they shared was really, really heavy. It was really, really heavy, and it was shocking to my peers,
Mm.
in the room as we were watching. And what was interesting is my professor said, she said, "Wasn't that shocking to you?" I said, "Of course." She said, "But you didn't show it."
Yeah.
And she said, "Because you didn't show it, you made that person feel safe."
Mm.
And I was like, wow, like I got, I got overwhelmed because I was like, oh my goodness, I provided that for that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you express shock, that's expressing judgment.
Most definitely.
And
Yeah.
you were there and you held space for them. That's what's so powerful, I think, about working with practitioners when it comes to like we're all on this journey to heal, whether it's past life stuff, if you believe in that, whether it's just our own trauma from our own childhood, because I don't care who you are, you don't get to go through this thing called life without the good, the bad, and the very ugly. Like it, I haven't had a single person that's crossed my plate that hasn't been through something traumatic in their life. And not that it's a competition, but it's actually a norm. And I feel like this unfortunate norm is an opportunity for us to experience something, experience the polarity from the good to the bad to the evil. But it's that power we gain, it's that value we extract. Because you and I are both way better humans vibrating at a higher vibrational frequency because of the trauma and drama we've been through. I mean,
Mhm.
I think of like some, you probably know this, like the people that you meet that are doing some like extraordinary things and how they're showing up and helping others heal and giving them that space. Their stories are like so crazy, like so crazy. So I think that I don't know what my point to this was, but I think ultimately it's like we're supposed to go through the ups and downs, and if you're trying to avoid feeling any discomfort in your life, like you're not living. You're really not
Yeah.
living. And it's okay to feel all the things because they're all a bunch of experiences that ultimately help us evolve to help each other further in the future.
Most definitely, most definitely. And I have to say, so much healing has taken place in my own life that when I see a difficult time coming, I don't run from it at all. I you put my head, I'm like, okay, let's go. Because I know that it's something I'm supposed to learn through it. And I
Uh,
actually get, not that I'm inviting
right,
or
right.
saying I want that, but I'm definitely not fearful of the difficult. I definitely did have just, I would say, become aware of what I have in me to deal with the difficult, and I do know what tools, and what I would say what armor I have to fight the battles that are coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's nothing you cannot handle. Not that you want to have to handle it, but like you're in such a solid space that it's like, okay, if this is what's being presented to me, I'll get through this. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a powerful place to be. Um, okay, before we end, is there, we were talking about earlier, like keeping our mental and physical health even through the winter months, right? So like where you are, it's cold and people will be like, oh, I exercise, but it's just too cold. Or like where I'm at, the weather's not bad. You could still go and you can exercise and but then the sun isn't shining all the time. So people get that seasonal depressive disorder. So what are
Right.
some tips you have for people to get through kind of like also the holiday season as a therapist? There's so many emotions, so many triggers that people have. Then you have the weather, and then you have, the financial burden that some people experience during this time, and just the emotional, like, what are some tips you have for people to like say, okay, we get this season is here. Here are some tips to help you get through and weather this season.
it's interesting. I wrote, and I'll send it to you. I wrote an article, "Don't take a holiday from your health during the holidays," on
Oh,
a
I
health
like that.
in
We can put that
Michigan.
in the show notes. Send me the link. We'll put it in the show notes. So you guys can click on that and have a good read. Yeah.
Yeah, and in that I talk about how you can, how you can shop wisely, how you can gather wisely, how you can exercise and eat well, and how to be very intentional about it. And it goes into, I would say, pretty good detail. And but just to kind of sum it up, one of the things that I say is, that kind of cliche is phrase, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. I do believe that applies, especially as it relates to health and the holidays, because oftentimes, if you don't plan ahead, then you're just kind of making decisions along the way. And sometimes the decisions aren't the best decisions,
Mhm.
especially as it relates to budget. So figure out how much you're going to spend on gifts. Determine ahead of time what type eating you're going to do. Determine ahead of time what type exercising you're going to do, and be very strategic about it. If you know that the weather is going to be bad, are you going to want to go to the gym and go out? If not, then what is your workout routine going to be inside?
Mhm.
And and have it planned. What kind of workout are you going to do Monday through Sunday? And if you're resting on the weekend, then have that, say, okay, I'm not, maybe you're stretching or maybe you're just relaxing, but be very, very intentional about it. If you know that being inside makes you feel sad, then make sure that you have appropriate clothing and go on a walk. So unless it's unsafe outside and it's icy and slippery, still go for that walk. And just be mindful, like I said, of icy spots. In Michigan, as you know, we have black ice, and so you do have to be
Yeah.
careful because sometimes you can have slick spots you don't necessarily see them. So make sure that you're safe. But if you are a person who needs to be outside, still go outside and just dress appropriately. Um, if you're a person who tends to overindulge and for holiday, plan ahead what you're going to eat. And also, something I'm really big on is serving size. And so you may go to, eat at someone's house, or you may have people over. You can still eat say the right amount of protein, the starchy
Yeah.
carbs. You don't have to overindulge. Box it up. Tell them to put it in a container so you can take it home. And just be mindful of what you're eating. If it's crap, don't eat it.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, it's like it's at the end of the day, this is my number one question. I say ask my clients to ask themselves, am I going to feel good after I eat that? And
Mhm.
if the answer is no, then don't eat it,
Mhm.
or eat a small amount. Something also too, I will say, is oftentimes in the busyness of things, we stop eating, we stop exercising, we stop taking care of ourselves. So make sure that you're scheduling in your exercise and scheduling in when you're going to eat. And when you're shopping, it's real easy to kind of go through a fast food,
Mhm.
and pick up fast food, or just go be shopping for 4 or 5, 6 hours and realize you haven't eaten. So maybe pre-pack some stuff, keep it in the car so you can go out, take a break, eat a quick bit and go back into the store so that you're not eating the mall food.
Yeah. 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 No, that's great. Those are great tips. I always have what's called my emergency cashew stash in my car. So I have that stash always, raw organic cashews. You will always find a bag of that in my car because yeah, there's times where you just like you get so busy and then you gotta have those snacks so you don't get hangry and then you're grabbing for all the things that you're like regretting eating.
Yeah, totally.
We've all been there. We've all been there. Well, Angela, thank you so much for joining me today. Can you please share with everyone where they can connect with you and on social and yeah, all the good things.
Yeah, just empowered by Angela. .com is my website, and then Facebook Empowered by Angela, Instagram Empowered by Angela. Am I missing one? LinkedIn Empowered by Angela.
Yeah, all right. I love it. Thank you, Angela, so much for joining me. Appreciate all your tips and sharing with our listeners.
You're welcome.